Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. Jaded Blossom's February 2023 release is now available and it's so much fun. All about luck and St. Patrick's Day. Here's a look at all of the items that are included in the release. I'll start with the stamp set, St. Patrick's Brewing Company. Currently this is not available individually. It's the freebie you will receive if you order at least $50 worth of products, and one item has to be from the new release. And the freebie is only available on Thursday, February 16th and while supplies last. The next item is a stamp set called Clover Cluster. We have the stamps and the coordinating outline dies. And I love that they have the outline dies for the images and also the sentiments. The next stamp set is called Lucky Vibes. When I was recording this portion of the video, I didn't have the stamp set, but it is available along with the outline dies. There are lots of really fun sentiments. We have Lucky Vibes, Shenanigans with my Gnomies, Lucky a Latte, and one of my favorites, You're Lucky to Have Me as a Friend. The next stamp set is Clovers for Sale, and this is a set that works perfectly with their Build-A-Booth die set. And of course it also works without the booth dies. Lots of really fun sentiments, a couple about St. Patrick's Day, we have leprechauns and clovers, really fun variety. The next item is Clover Add Ons, and this goes along with the Build-A-Booth die set. And here's a look at the Build-A-Booth die set that was released last month. And Jaded Blossom has been releasing add-on sets to work with the Build-A-Booth dies. And here you can see the Clovers for Sale sentiments fit perfectly on the very top of the booth. If you're not a fan of the booth, the add-on sets do work individually. You'll have this fun little clover banner and also some individual clover and shamrock images. The next item is an add-on set to go with the Gnome Dies. It's called Pot of Gold. There are lots of new items for the gnome to hold, also a pair of shoes, and I think my favorite part about the set is the large pot of gold. The St. Patrick's Day gnomes that were released last year had a small pot of gold that the gnome could hold, and now there's a large pot of gold that you can use with or without the gnomes. And there's another new gnome add-on set. This one's really fun. It's the leg add-ons. There are 3 different versions. And the 2 images with the knees bent can make your gnome leap up in the air, and the other one has them doing the splits. It's always fun to have more options for the gnomes. The final item in the release is a new stencil set. This is Clover, so you can create some really fun and lucky backgrounds. If you are interested in any of the items from the release, I do have links provided in the description box below. I do have a few cards to share using the new release. We'll go ahead and get started with card design number 1. I am using a card sketch for inspiration. This is from MFT. It's number 226. The pattern paper is by Doodlebug. I'm using the front and back side of a 12 by 12 sheet. I don't remember what the collection is. It came in a grab bag that I purchased last year. And I did check, the grab bag is still available if you're interested, and I will add that link in the description box. Instead of using a tag die, I decided to create my own. I cut out a small piece from some white shimmer cardstock, and I'll be using this stencil on just the bottom portion of that piece. I used a piece of mint tape to mask off the top, and also to hold the stencil onto my mini stencil mat. I'll add just a light coat of the grass skirt ink color from Catherine Pooler. Then I'll remove the tape, and I have a nice clean line at the top. For a little detail and separation, I'll add a Love from Lizzie peel off along the top edge of that stenciled portion. This is the pinstripe style in the green holographic color. Now it's time to cut that piece and turn it into a tag, and I'm just using my scissors. I'll first cut the one side at an angle, then I'll save that small little triangle piece, lay it against the other side to try to get those 2 sides even. I'll cut a fishtail at the bottom, and to cut out the whole of the tag, I am using Jaded Blossom's Luggage Tag dies. The piece is smaller than that die, so the only place it'll cut out is the hole. and I did use some of the mint tape to hold that piece onto the die. On the card sketch, there's a narrow strip going through the center of the card. You could use ribbon, but I'm using a Love from Lizzie peel-off. This is the gold moon dust color in the straight design. Instead of adding a full strip all the way across that panel, I'm using some small pieces. I'll add one on the bottom first, trying to get it nice and centered. Then I'll put adhesive on the back of my tag, adhere it onto that tone-on-tone pattern. Then I'll add the other peel off onto the top, tucking it into the hole of the tag. So it looks like a full strip all the way across. Then I'll layer this piece on some green cardstock, add this panel onto the plaid background, and I've already attached my background onto a white card base. All of my cards in this video are American Standard A2 size, 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches. I've already stamped and cut out the image and the sentiment. This is good luck. For the clover, I stamped it on some green cardstock. Then I used some green ink and added it along the very outside just for a little extra detail. I did pop up the clover using some foam dimension. To adhere the sentiment, I used some clear double-sided tape. Then to finish off the card, I cut out 7 teeny tiny little clovers, and I'll add those onto the tag. These are from the Clover Booth add-on die set. I'll put a small drop of glue down first, then use an embellishment wand to pick up those tiny little die cut pieces and press them in place. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. Now moving on to card design number 2. I have a fun clover pattern for the background, and this is from Doodlebug's brand new Over the Rainbow collection. I'll be layering it on some green cardstock, but first I'll add a couple of Love from Lizzie peel-offs to the background. This is the gold mirror color in the pinstripe style. I'm using the widest and also the medium width. I'll wrap those ends around the back, then layer that piece on the green cardstock. Now I could have used just some small scrap pieces of peel-offs, since I will be covering up the majority of that area with an Octagon die cut. But sometimes I find it easier to use that full strip all the way across the card to make sure they're nice and straight. Next I'll add a white Octagon die cut, put some glue on the back and adhere that to the center of the card. This card will be featuring one of the gnomes, and I'm also using one of the new leg add-on sets. I used some white cardstock for the very background piece of the gnome and also the legs. The gnome will be wearing green pants and black shoes. I attach the pant portion down first, then I'll add the 2 shoes, and then finally the gold buckle for each of the shoes. Now I am using that main body outline for the gnome, but I will need to cut out those little foot stubs that are at the bottom, since this gnome will have one of the new leg add-on sets. So I just use my scissors, trim that portion off. I'll glue the beard down next. The gnome will also be wearing a different hat, and this is from the St. Patrick's Day gnome add-on set. While I'm waiting for the glue to adhere, I did put an acrylic block on top. Then I'll need to do a little more trimming on that outline piece in order to fit the hat, since I don't want any of that white cardstock to show. So now I'll attach the hat, the mustache, and his nose, and I did pop up the nose using some foam dimension. Now the fun part, adding his legs. I put some glue on the back, and I'm placing my gnome on top of the legs until I'm happy with the position. Next I'll put some foam dimension on the back to pop up the gnome and adhere him onto the Octagon die cut. This gnome will be holding one of the gold coins, and I did use the same gold mirror cardstock that I used for the buckle of the shoes and his hat. And I'll also add one of the small clover images onto the coin. I'll put some foam dimension on the back of the coin, then I can attach his hand, so now he's holding that coin. For the hands, I do have some foam dimension just on the back side, and I'll put glue where the fingers are. The sentiment, I've already stamped and cut this out. This is "You're lucky to have me as a friend." And using the same outline die, I cut out a second piece from some green cardstock, And I'll adhere those two pieces together so I have a drop shadow of that green. I'll put some foam dimension on the back, remove the release paper, and adhere the sentiment in the lower right-hand corner. I think this sentiment would make that perfect friend smile. To finish off the card, I'm using another new item from Doodlebug's Over the Rainbow collection. This is one of their shape sprinkles called Lots O' Luck. Thought they would be perfect for some St. Patrick's Day cards. I'll put two of the clovers above the sentiment, one next to the gnome in the upper left-hand corner, and also a few of the little dots. Then for a final finishing touch, I'll use a white gel pen and add some highlights to my gnome and also the clover on the coin. And I also put a flower on his hat, and that's from the same shape sprinkle set. So there is my finished card, and I did make two using this design. Jaded Blossom's Gnome Dies are always so much fun, and I love the new leg add-ons. For card design number 3, I'm using some more of the Over the Rainbow collection by Doodlebug. I have some cloud paper for the background and also some green polka dot paper for the very bottom. I cut out this little grassy hill, and that die is from Jaded Blossom's Mushroom Dies. I'll also be using their rainbow die set. I cut out the 6 colors of the rainbow, and I'll add them onto the left side of the card. And the rainbow will be going right into a pot of gold. So first I'll get the placement correct for the red piece, then I'll add orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. They are longer than I'll need on the card, but I'll just simply flip over this panel and trim off the extra. While adhering the rainbow, try to make sure to press all of those pieces close together so there aren't any gaps between the colors. I used some black shimmer cardstock for the background of the pot of gold and also for the pot. There are separate dies for the feet and the handles of the pot, but I decided just to add that extra piece of the pot so I could have that nice stitch detail. Glue those two pieces together. For the gold, I used some gold iridescent cardstock, so it's super sparkly. I put some foam dimension on the back of the pot of gold and adhered it underneath my rainbow. I'm using some thin black foam dimension, and this is from Honeybee Stamps. I also cut out a couple of clouds from the same rainbow die set. I used some white shimmer cardstock for those. And I did pop up both of the clouds using some foam dimension. The very edge of each of the clouds will go off of the cloud pattern paper, and I'll just trim off the overhang using my scissors. I already put the foam dimension on the back, but when I'm attaching the clouds, I'm checking to make sure I have all of those areas covered. And on the cloud on the left, I decided to remove a little bit of the foam dimension and move it more toward the left. That way I'm not covering up too much of the rainbow. I decided this card would have some extra dimension, so I am popping up that entire background piece using some thin foam dimension. I'll make sure to get good coverage so there isn't one area that sags. And the foam strips I'm using are from Honeybee Stamps. I like them since they're nice and thin. I'll adhere that panel onto some white shimmer cardstock. Then I'll flip over this panel, put some ATG tape on the back, and add my card front onto a card base. Next, I'll add several little clovers to the bottom of the card. I have 2 different sizes. I did put foam dimension on the back of a couple of them, but the others I'll glue down directly. I'll put 2 clovers on the left side and 3 on the right side of the card. The sentiment, I've already stamped and cut this out. Happy St. Patrick's Day. And I'll adhere that directly onto the black pot. And I did use some clear double-sided tape on the back of the sentiment to adhere it in place. For a final finishing touch, I cut out some of the individual gold coins using the same gold iridescent cardstock. And I'll add the coins to the bottom of the card, hiding them in the grass and tucking some of them behind the clovers. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. I love how sparkly the card is with that iridescent cardstock. For card design number 4, I'll be using the Build-A-Booth dies and also the new Clover add-on set. The pattern paper is by Alta New. It's the Gel Printing Soft Washes collection. I love this beautiful green and yellow background. I'll put some ATG tape on the back and add that piece onto a card base. And just to save time on the video, I've already assembled the booth. If you want to see how to assemble it, you can always check out my video using the January 2023 release. I did pop up the booth using some foam dimension. I'll be adding the Clover sentiment onto the sign, and I kept the letters together the way they are on the die. I used some tacky tape to hold those in place, put glue on the back side, then adhere them onto that stitched rectangle die cut. Then I'll slowly remove that tacky tape, and now the sentiment is spaced perfectly to fit onto the sign. I'll also add a couple of the teeny tiny clovers to the right and left of the sentiment. I'll be adding a few of the shamrock balloons inside the booth. I put foam dimension in the area where they aren't sitting on the booth. I'll add the one on the left side first, put glue on the top part of the shamrock. Then I'll add the shamrock balloon on the right side. The last balloon, I did put some thin foam dimension, and I'll adhere that onto the very top portion of the booth. Most of the balloon strings won't be visible, so I did trim off the very bottom. Instead of putting the sign at the very top of the booth, I'll be adding it to the center. So I will put some foam dimension on that upper area where it's not sitting on the booth. I also cut out a couple of small clovers, and I'll tuck those in above the clover sign. And I did put some foam dimension on the back of each of the clovers. One of them I trimmed off the bottom since I'll be tucking it underneath the sign and you won't see that portion anyway. I'll add my 17-cent price, and I did cut this out of some green iridescent cardstock. And I kept those pieces together the same way I did for the clovers using some tacky tape. I'll put some glue on the back of each of those pieces and adhere it in the upper right-hand corner of my booth. Then I can slowly remove the tacky tape. For a final finishing touch, I'll use a white gel pen and add a few highlights to the clovers and also the bows on the garland. So there is my finished card, and I did make two using this design. The new Build-A-Booth die set is so much fun. I'm looking forward to all the new add-on sets that we'll be releasing this year. Now moving on to card design number 5. I just had to make a card featuring lots of pink. The pattern paper is from the same Alta New Gel Printing Soft Washes collection. Beautiful pink with just a hint of soft orange. I put a couple of Love from Lizzie peel-offs toward the bottom of the card. This is the pinstripe style in the pink holographic color. Put some ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base. I will be adding a large scallop oval die cut, and I did cut this out of vellum. This card will be featuring one of the girl gnomes, and I've already attached the new leaping legs, and I love that she's barefoot. So cute. I put some foam dimension on the back of my little gnome, and I'll adhere her to the center of that oval die cut. Then I can flip over that oval and add glue just in the area behind the gnome. Then I can attach the oval onto the card. That way none of the glue will show through on the vellum. This girl is a crafty gnome. She has her scissors and also her pink ATG. The scissors are from the School Gnome add-on set, and the ATG is from the Paper Hoarder stamp set. I did a very simple coloring on the image and fussy cut it out. Put foam dimension on the back of each of the images and attach them to the front of my little girl gnome, so now she's holding her crafty tools. Now I'm not sure how safe she's being leaping up into the air holding a pair of scissors with the blade pointing toward her face, but she's obviously very excited to get crafting. I thought the perfect sentiment for this card was keep calm and stamp on. And this is from Jaded Blossom Stamp Addict set. It fits perfectly on one of their balloon dies. I did trim the very bottom of the balloon string so I could tuck it behind my little gnome. For embellishments, I'm using the Cherry Blossom enamel dots from Alta New. The color matches really nicely with the pink in the background and the balloon. And I also added a glittery white flower to the top of the little girl's hat. For a final finishing touch, I'll use a white gel pen and add a few highlights to the balloon, the girl, and also her tools. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. I love how this card turned out. The new leaping legs are so much fun. Now here's another look at the 10 cards I made using Jaded Blossom's brand new February 2023 release. There are so many fun products in this release, even if you don't make St. Patrick's Day cards. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links provided in the description box below. Jaded Blossom is one of my favorite craft companies. They have wonderful products, and I love that their stamps, dies, and stencils are all made in the US. It's always exciting to see the new items in their monthly release. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.